Hello and welcome to my Aptera journey. Today we're going to explore 3 topics. Is Aptera Motors going bankrupt? Aptera Motors' path to an IPO. And Aptera design maturing for manufacturing. So let's get right to it.
Ode to Aptera, the most efficient vehicle on the planet. It feels so right. Glides down the highway, taking off from the sun. No more drilling.
Hello, my name is Rich Rodriguez and welcome to my Aptera journey. This channel is about the thrill of an Aptera on a twisting, curving mountain road. In the rush of adrenaline with sub-4-second acceleration time. And the pleasure of charging your car from the sun. And on some models, the confidence of up to 1,000 miles of range. But we don't have an Aptera yet. And some specifications have changed to get Aptera to market quicker. Despite that, there are some things I would like to share with you today. First, though, a little about me. I'm a trained electrical engineer, so I understand how EVs work. I'm an EV owner with over 180,000 miles of experience, so I get range and charging. I have an MBA in finance, and I have been mentored by an investment banker. And in my day job, I read and analyze financial statements every day. With that background done, let's get into today's 3 topics. Part 1. Is Aptera going bankrupt? I was asked in a comment in one of my recent videos, because of your MBA and financial analysis background, can you please tell us if Aptera Motors is going bankrupt? So I'm happy to do that today. I have financial analysis software that allows me to enter balance sheet and income statement data. From this data, standard ratios like leverage and sales growth can be generated. I understand how to do that. In my day job underwriting municipal loans, I have done this type of financial analysis many times. But new growing companies just entering the market with products are different. Success of these kinds of companies are almost always totally dependent on the founders. Let me illustrate this with a couple of short stories. I've heard of this guy who was at 62 years old had a favorite chicken recipe. At the age of 65, after his restaurant business failed, he was essentially penniless and relying on Social Security. This man faced numerous job losses, business ventures that failed, and even a personal hardship like a divorce. Despite these setbacks, he persisted, traveling and pitching his fried chicken recipe, facing over 1,000 rejections before finally finding success. He struggled. But now we have Kentucky Fried Chicken, an international powerhouse in fast food. But it took the skills and hustle of a 65-year-old to make this happen. Persistence. 2, many of us have heard of a small computer company that started in a garage. It grew rapidly until one of its founders was forced out by their board. the company nearly went bankrupt until one of its founders returned to turn the company around. Now, Apple, formerly Apple Computer, is an international powerhouse across multiple domains. Success of these kind of upstart companies is totally dependent on the founders. You just can't run a spreadsheet analysis and predict whether they will wither or thrive and grow into some kind of stellar success. You just can't predict these things. People are unpredictable. And unpredictable people driven to success can accomplish some amazing things. So, is Aptera Motors going bankrupt at the moment? The answer is no. Aptera founders Steve Fambro and Chris Anthony are driven. In fact, Aptera Motors recently unveiled their fully production intent Aptera Roadster, linked below. Now nearing production, Aptera has road trips planned for this vehicle this summer in California. So is Aptera Motors going bankrupt at the moment? The answer is no. Aptera founders Steve Fambro and Chris Anthony are driven to success. Part 2. Aptera's path to an IPO. Now that we have the bankrupt question taken care of, many of you have asked about an Aptera Motors IPO. Well, today we're going to explore what that path might look like. So get comfy, grab your favorite beverage, and let's explore how this IPO might unfold. First, consider Aptera Motors already has a stock symbol for trading on a stock exchange. The company first announced their stock symbol in a June 2024 private investor presentation. The NASDAQ symbol is SUNA, SUNA, as you can see here. This is all in preparation for their IPO. Aptera Motors is laying the ground for an IPO in New York. Aptera Motors co-CEO Chris Anthony was interviewed in New York on NYSE TV's Floor Talk show. See the link below. And watch Chris Anthony on NYSE TV's Floor Talk show for yourself. Aptera Motors is clearly priming its path for an IPO. And perhaps Aptera Motors needs to meet some more criteria before that IPO happens. The NASDAQ has a set of criteria that a company needs to meet before they are eligible for listing. And the NASDAQ has a guide for these listings requirements. Depending on the type of listing, companies need to meet financial requirements or liquidity requirements or financial and liquidity requirements, as well as separate requirements for direct listings and SPACs. So how can Aptera meet some of these criteria? Say revenue as an example. Well, maybe with a mezzanine financing round. A mezzanine financing round is perhaps what's next. Executing a mezzanine round offering could be a great opportunity for some insightful investment bankers. What is a mezzanine financing? Mezzanine debt, also known as mezzanine financing, is a form of hybrid capital that combines features of both debt and equity financing. It sits between senior debt and equity in a company's capital structure. It often includes embedded options such as warrants or convertible features, allowing lenders to participate in the company's upside potential. So hopefully you now see the value of a mezzanine financing round. For the investor, you get a kicker on the upside round, perhaps the IPO, with warrants and convertible options. For the company, you get the funding to accelerate your growth and perhaps meet the metrics needed for that IPO. Makes sense and win-win. Some companies you may recognize have executed mezzanine financing prior to going public. These include Uber, WeWork, and Airbnb. SpaceX has taken mezzanine financing, though SpaceX is not yet public. So a mezzanine financing round may well be a smart next step for Aptera Motors. So, how can Aptera Motors proceed with mezzanine financing? Perhaps with a syndicate of bankers. Imagine a group of bankers, referred to as a syndicate, that's put together to accept subscriptions for a mezzanine financing round. Investment bankers love to compete. In my day job, when we issue a bond, there's always a lead underwriter and co-underwriters. This structure helps assure that your offering is made available to those investment bankers that have access to the types of investors that make most sense for your offering. This illustration shows how a syndicate might look like, with a lead bank manager and co-managers all accepting subscriptions for the financing that is being offered. This structure, a syndicated mezzanine financing round, could provide the financing needed for Aptera to achieve the financial metrics mentioned earlier, example, sales revenue, that would be needed for its IPO. Part 3. Aptera design changes to get to market cost effectively and quickly. Just as we have seen a natural progression of Aptera Motors from a financing perspective, so too we see a logical progression of the Aptera design as it is moving forward into production. Indeed, just this week, Aptera Motors revealed their built-out production intent vehicle. Air conditioning, functional infotainment system, glass encapsulated solar cells, power windows, sound system, and much more. Despite the unveiling this week of the production intent vehicle, I have seen many online comments expressing grave disappointment on why we don't have our production vehicles in our driveways. So it is perhaps insightful to review the changes the Aptera design has taken over the last few years as it has matured and progressed towards the volume production and into our hands. Remember, there are some 50,000 vehicles that have been pre-ordered, representing some $1.7 billion in pre-order sales. That's amazing. So how does Aptera Motors evolve to meet this demand? First, the body design. The body design from 2019-2020 was based on a resin-infused sandwich composite core. These resin-infused sandwich core composite sections were intended to be laid into molds by hand, resin injected, and then set to cure, and then removed by hand from the molds. This is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. This equals expense. When Aptera first opened their books for pre-orders in 2019, 2020, the company was thinking they would receive a few hundred pre-orders, maybe a couple thousand. Instead, Aptera was overwhelmed with thousands of orders, and the number of pre-orders kept climbing and climbing and climbing. Now the company has some 50,000 pre-orders. So the hand-laid sandwich core composite sections were just too expensive at this volume of production. So the company smartly moved to carbon fiber sheet molding compound and glass sheet molding compound body parts. These body parts are literally pressed out just like making plastic parts, except these pieces are strong as a rock. This molding pressing process takes just minutes from start to finish, with a perfect part every time. This is the same technique used in many exotic sports cars and is a well-proven, well-honed process. So this change in the body manufacturing process and materials was made exclusively to bring the Aptera to market in a cost-effective manner, given the high volume demand. Very smart. Then the motor. The Aptera introduced to us in 2019 featured advanced, innovative in-wheel motors. This also allowed for simple all-wheel drive variants. However, as production demand leapt up into the tens of thousands, it appeared the in-wheel motor supplier was unable to produce the motors for Aptera in the volumes needed at the cost needed. So to resolve this quandary, Aptera opted for a simple off-the-shelf electric motor and implemented this in a front wheel configuration. The motor is Ventesco Technologies EMR3. The EMR3 is a highly integrated, high-voltage axle drive system that combines a permanent magnet synchronous motor, inverter, and reducer gear into a single unit. This off-the-shelf motor system can be delivered in the quantities needed and at the cost needed. So again, while this was a design change, it was made in order to deliver a vehicle with all of its core features intact. Super efficient aerodynamic design, lightweight, and solar energy assisted. So the front wheel drive system brings the vehicle to market at a price point needed and the volumes needed to meet demand. Yet another smart decision. And finally, the cooling system. In their quest to create the world's most efficient vehicle, Aptera wanted to eliminate as much aerodynamic drag as possible. A standard radiator presented a fair amount of air resistance, drag, to the air that passes through it. So, Aptera Motors developed and patented an innovative in-body cooling system. The cooling liquid runs through body panels, so no separate exterior radiator is needed. But that seemed expensive to get into production at the moment. The solution? An aircraft-inspired air scoop cooling system. Air enters under the scoop under the vehicle and exits under the rear tail surface. Perhaps this design is incorporating the Meredith effect. The Meredith effect is a phenomenon whereby the aerodynamic drag produced by a cooling radiator may be offset by careful design of the cooling duct, such that useful thrust is produced. The air scoop is simple to implement and fairly low cost. It could, perhaps, even produce thrust. The air scoop design is genius. Well, that's all for today, friends. I look forward to sharing time with you before too long. Until then, my wish for you is to be well, do good work, and charge on.
Wingless flight. I love Aptera. It feels so right. The future is now. Protect Mother Earth. Keep her healthy for what it's worth. What's your pleasure, Luna or Soul? Let's save the planet. We're on a roll. Glides down the highway, taking off from the sun. No more drilling, can't you see?